Good morning, everyone, and happy Sunday. My name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. As always, I am here to help you break down tonight's main slate on both DraftKings and FanDuel for NBA DFS. We have a 5 game slate tonight that locks at 6 Eastern Standard Time, which is an hour earlier than usual. So definitely keep that in mind. Obviously, we got some playoff football today. So, yeah, NBA might not be everyone's main focus, which could mean softer fields, could mean guys that usually only play NFL tilt entering late in the day. So, this is certainly a good slate to make money on. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the slate. Again, 5 games, nice size. I'm going to click through both DraftKings and FanDuel. I'll slowly build lineups as I talk through my favorite plays. I have the injury report up. Most teams have reported their injuries for the day. There are a few that haven't, but we'll talk through those as well. So, yeah, first game on the slate, we have. Oh, just a second, loading up the odds. But yeah, we have the Brooklyn Nets at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Just pulling up the odds here now. Um, but yeah, obviously the big news here is that Kevin Durant is still out for the Nets. He's going to be missing some time. And there are other games being played today in the afternoon. We're not going to talk about those. There's a 1 o'clock game, a couple 3 o'clock games. So just make sure if you're looking at stats or some sort of aggregate um, of information that you're not including those games. But yeah, the Nets are 5 point favorites at home. We have a 230.5 point game total here. No surprise with Kevin Durant out of the lineup, Kyrie Irving is going to look excellent. He is going to draw some Lou Dort here. I know some people like to kind of dampen their projections for that reason, but I don't think it's going to be a problem here. The Nets have plenty of ways to create space for Kyrie. And with Kevin Durant out of the lineup, a whole lot of this team's going to look good here. So just looking quickly, I have the Occupy Fantasy model right here. And if you haven't already, please like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. That helps us get more free content out to you. Also, if you're not a member at Occupy Fantasy, check the links in the description below. You get access to the model I'm using here, as well as a single lineup and multi-lineup builder, private Discord server full of DFS pros, and there is a 30-minute window leading up to each slate's lock where you can ask your lineup-specific questions. So now that housekeeping is out of the way, I could get back into the Nets here. So yeah, Kyrie Irving's the obvious play. He looks great on both sides. His price really hasn't come up that much. He didn't have a huge game last time out with Kevin Durant out of the lineup, but I mean, 9,200 on DK, 9,300 on FanDuel, certainly a reasonable price. Royce O'Neal seeing extra usage on the wing with Kevin Durant out of the lineup, 4,800 on DK, 5,600 on FanDuel. I mean, there is some sticker shock on that 5,600 price over on FanDuel, but I am totally fine getting to Royce O'Neal. Power forward is notoriously a tough position to fill. And he fills that void, and he does have some upside in scoring, especially with Durant out of the lineup. Don't mind Nick Claxton here. He looks fine. Definitely better on DK where you're getting him for 6,100. You only have the one center spot on FanDuel, so 7,300 is a little bit tougher to stomach, but it isn't a bad matchup at all. Ben Simmons, he's another guy. I mean, he's looked good. 5,900 on DK is certainly easier to stomach. Let me pull up his game logs quickly here. I mean, he's been good. He just needs to get to the rim more. This is a funny stat line, in my opinion. We got 9 rebounds, 13 assists, a block, and 2 steals. So he had a really good fantasy day in 26 minutes, but 0 points scored. And I think that's the real thing we got to talk about here. I mean, Ben knows he needs to get to the rim. I do think he has a ceiling. I do like him as a tournament play. Probably wouldn't go there and cash on FanDuel, but on DK at 5,900, that's going to be tough to get away from. Another wing player we're going to have to take a look at here, and it's crazy how much usage opens up for these guys with Durant out of the lineup. Not only does he have a high usage rate, but he plays almost 40 minutes a game. So I don't mind TJ Warren. Don't love the price at 5,200 on FanDuel. Again, FanDuel's done a bit better of a job this season in pricing guys up when there are injuries. DraftKings does adjust, but it takes a couple more games. So we're getting really, really good value on these Nets on DraftKings and pretty good value over on DK. Then we could talk about Joe Harris, Seth Curry, even Yuta Watanabe, kind of in that order. These are guys that are going to be hitting threes. You need the buckets to be falling for them to hit value, but we saw with Joe Harris last time out, he got to 30 fantasy points. Pretty obvious why he's a decent play here. Seth Curry, similar situation. Obviously needs that shot to fall, but for him it wasn't falling. You see only 10 fantasy points. So I would take a look at the ownership personally in tournaments. I mean, we're seeing Joe Harris and Seth Curry both pretty much own the same on both sides, so maybe I have a slight lean to Harris. But if we see that ownership kind of widen and we see Harris become chalk and no one's playing Curry, I would happily make that ownership pivot. Yuta Watanabe is another guy. He could get hot. Any of these wings. I mean, Yuta's more of a shooting guard as is Seth Curry, but Harris, Warren, Royce O'Neal, these are all guys who are going to get a lot more shots than they usually do, especially if defenses are keying in on Kyrie. Kyrie can still get his, especially sub 10K, which is why he's one of the best plays on the slate, why he's one of the most popular plays on the slate. And yeah, the only player on the injury report today for the Nets is Kevin Durant. So there's really no reason not to like Nets here. Again, they're playing the Oklahoma City Thunder, pretty soft matchup, 230.5 point game total. So love me some Nets. I'm considering Kyrie Irving a core play. I think Royce O'Neal is the next best thing. If you can get to him, I'd probably pencil those two in. And then TJ Warren, where he's only 4,200 on DK, that's very appealing to me. I don't want to plug in too many nets right now. I'd actually probably go to Ben Simmons next on DK if I'm going to a third net. But yeah, they're really tough to get away from. I mean, the prices just haven't adjusted quickly enough. For OKC, we're seeing Poku still out. Jeremiah Robinson Earl is still out as well. So we have to keep an eye on the starting lineup for them here. Click back over to the Occupy model, sort by OKC. So yeah, I mean, there's been value in this front court, slate to slate. It's just tough to know who it's going to be. I mean, if Jalen Williams with a YLI is starting, he's an okay punt at center on DK, power forward on FanDuel. Mike Muscala, if he's starting, I think he's a fine punt at center, but it's going to be really tough to trust either of those guys in the front court. I loved SGA here. He looks great. Obviously, a little bit more expensive than Kyrie, but similar upside. Josh Giddey, he looks solid here as well. You're getting a nice discount off the more expensive guard, 7,200 on DK, 7,700 on FanDuel. We've seen him touching triple doubles at times this season, so he certainly has a ceiling, especially in a matchup like this one against Brooklyn, whose defense is much. I don't want to say much worse with KD out of the lineup, but it is worse. And they are going to be playing pretty quick here with the offense almost exclusively running through Kyrie. So it's just a good matchup all around. Lou Dort, boomer bust play. He's drawing pretty good ownership here. I don't mind him. He's going to be on the floor a lot. He has been playing more minutes. Not someone I'm ever rushing to get to. Then the other Jalen Williams, another guy I don't mind, just not someone I'm prioritizing. I mean, if there are priorities here, it's probably Giddy SGA and that's it. But keep an eye on that front court. If we see Muscala starting or Jalen Williams again with the YLIN, there's two Jalen Williams, then you could probably consider one of them as a value play. Some of these wings could look good. I mean, if Kenrich Williams gets a start, maybe you consider him. Darius Baisley, same story. Neither are going to be easy to trust, but the starting lineup certainly to keep an eye on, and no major injury news other than what's going on in that front court for OKC. So obviously we like some Nets tonight, but we could move into the next game on the slate. We have the Sacramento Kings at the San Antonio Spurs. The Kings are 6.5 point favorites on the road in San Antonio. Devin Vassell is going to be out for an extended period of time for the Spurs. Charles Bassey is out as well. Doug McDermott is questionable. So I'll just talk through the Spurs quickly here. I mean, as long as Vassell's out, Keldon Johnson should look good. He hasn't really been as effective as I think anyone wanted or expected him to be over the past couple games with Vassell out of the lineup. But he's still just 6,800 on both sides. I do like him here. I think he's fine. I think if people are hesitant to play him because of the game logs, then maybe you could get some decent leverage on the field at lower ownership than he should be. I mean, he was total chalk earlier in the season with Vassell out of the lineup, but I think people have kind of soured on Johnson the past couple slates. He's putting up okay numbers, just not hitting value at that price, but he does have a very high ceiling. So I do like Keldon on both sides. I think he's a really strong play. But yeah, the other guy who I really like here, there's actually two. Jakob Poeltl, he's finally back seeing regular minutes. Didn't see 30 minutes last time out, but he has been close to hitting value consistently. Not a bad matchup here against Sacramento, obviously. The Kings have been playing good basketball, but defensively, especially in the front court, they can be beat. So I don't mind Poeltl here. Not really a priority for me. The last guy is Trey Jones. We do see increased usage for him with Devin Vassell in the lineup. His price just hasn't really moved. 6,300 on DK is certainly better than the 6,800 price we have to pay for him on FanDuel, but he's another guy I'm considering. With Bassey out, we can be certain that Zach Collins is going to get the backup center minutes. Don't mind him as kind of a last man in. Certainly not a priority. Then Jeremy Sochan, I mean, really talented young player. Doesn't always get the minutes. but I don't mind him in tournaments either. But again, the priorities here for San Antonio are certainly Keldon Johnson, then Jakob Poeltl, and Trey Jones as kind of secondary options. Over on the King side, Kevin Herter is questionable. This is an interesting one. If Kevin Herter's out, then we could see Terrence Davis start again. He would become a very appealing value option. Malik Monk as well sees a considerable boost in minutes and usage with Kevin Herter out of the lineup. So a piece of news we certainly have to keep an eye on here. We're seeing very high ownership on Malik Monk. I think even if Herter's in, you could go to Monk, but I would feel much better about getting to him at pretty high ownership. With Herter out of the lineup. So definitely keep an eye on that one. 4,300 on DK, though. Like I said, I think you could play him there regardless. On FanDuel at 5,100, I'd prefer Herter to be out. But as things stand, he's certainly a great play. Sabonis has been outstanding. I think he's one of the better pay-ups on the slate. We do have Luka. We do have Dame, obviously Kyrie, but I mean, in the front court, there's not that much to pay up for. I think if you can afford Sabonis today, he's certainly worth getting to. Keegan Murray seeing more minutes lately. He's fine on both sides. Don't mind him. I always talk about Harrison Barnes as not the most exciting play, but he's a play I don't mind getting to as kind of a last man in. De'Aaron Fox, another guard with upside. Not drawing any ownership on DK. I like him as a tournament play over there. He's very popular on FanDuel at just 8,500. For me, not someone I'm rushing to get to. Just pretty inconsistent. Obviously, he has the ceiling in him, but not someone I'm getting to on a consistent basis this season, and it really hasn't costed me yet. Knock on wood. So I do like Sabonis here. I think if you can afford him, you do it. He's going to make it tougher to kind of build with Kyrie if you're starting with Kyrie, but just a really strong play in general. I like Sabonis. I like Keldon Johnson, who I mentioned before. So we can kind of see a lineup kind of coming into focus here. But if we are going to stick with all these payups, we're going to need more value. So it is going to get a little bit tricky. Maybe you plug in a Harrison Barnes for some savings instead of Sabonis and see if you can get to Sabonis after the fact. I mean, if you want to get to Luka, it's just not going to happen. We also have good payups at the late game. I said there weren't a ton of good payups at center, but we do have Joel Embiid against the Lakers. Obviously, he's awesome here. So a lot to like on this slate, even though it's a short one. But I love me some Sabonis if you can afford him. If you're playing multiple lineups, I do think you want to get some in your lives this evening. Moving into the next game, we have the Denver Nuggets at the Orlando Magic. Let's see here. The Nuggets are 10.5-point favorites at home hosting the Magic. So I completely misspoke when I say there weren't a lot of good payups on the slate at center. We have Jokic, we have Embiid, we have Sabonis. It's just going to be tough to afford Jokic on a slate like this one. Obviously, if you can, his upside is as good as anyone's on the slate. It's just a tricky matchup with Orlando. Not that Orlando's good defensively, but they do tend to get blown out frequently. If that is the case on a Sunday, yeah, maybe Jokic can't get the value in three quarters, but at the same time, if you can afford him, I'm not going to talk anyone off playing Nikola Jokic. So love him here. Jamal Murray looks good, better on DK, much better on DK, where he's only 7K, 8K over on FanDuel. Michael Porter Jr. has been playing better basketball lately. I really like his price at 5,400 on DK. Don't mind him on FanDuel. Again, FanDuel is a little bit tougher on the pricing today than DK is, so keep that in mind if you're playing both sites. KCP's fine. Don't mind Bones Highland. It is this Sunday, so just keep in mind that it wouldn't be surprising to see some of the stars or starters scratch later in the day. We have been seeing that throughout the season. Obviously, if Jokic is out, it's going to be a big boost to everyone else here, but he did rest the other day, so I can't imagine he is going to be out or rested. He's not on the injury report at all. So love me some Jokic here. He's the priority. I like Michael Porter and Jamal Murray on ZK. Aaron Gordon, probably my second favorite FanDuel play. I like him on both sites. And then, yeah, you can get the guys like KCP. Bones Highland in large field tournaments. He doesn't always get there, though, when it comes to the minutes. Then, yeah, over on the Orlando side, I mean, they look okay. Wendell Carter Jr. is the one play who's been consistently producing. Don't mind him here. Markelle Fultz at 6K on DK looks good. Franz Wagner, forward is pretty thin on FanDuel. No surprise there. I don't mind him at 6,900. Definitely a little easier to get to on DK at 6,600. But again, all the prices are kind of heavier over on FanDuel today, so no surprise there. But really, it is a tough matchup. I know we're getting a high game total here, but other than Fultz and Wendell Carter Jr., it's really tough for me to trust anyone. I don't mind Wagner just because small forward's thin, but I'm really not prioritizing any Magic players here. So we can move into the next game on the slate. We have the Dallas Mavericks at the Portland Trailblazers. So these guys played last night. Portland blew out Dallas, and Christian Wood was out for that one. Still no injury report right now, so we're going to have to keep an eye on this. If Wood's out again, that would be a nice boost to Dwight Powell. Dwight Powell's never a great fantasy producer, but with Wood out of the lineup, he's going to have to play a ton of center minutes, so wouldn't mind him. But yeah, I mean, if you can afford Luka, he's probably the best play up on the slate. Didn't look great last night, but I do imagine Dallas is going to want to bounce back here to even the series, so keep an eye on that. Reggie Bullock, he was on absolute fire last night. His shot was falling every single time. He looks fine as a value play. Talking through this, we haven't had a ton of great value open up yet, so someone like Reggie Bullock could become very popular throughout the day. Wide range of outcomes. I mean, he's coming off a huge game, so it's going to feel like point chasing, but if we don't have any value, we just really don't have a choice. We're probably going to have to go to some Reggie here. Secondary options like Spencer Dinwiddie, Tim Hardaway Jr., they don't really excite me, but I could see getting there as like a last guy in. But again, if Christian Wood's in, I like him here. If he's out, you could get a little Dwight Powell for value. I wouldn't want to use up my center spot on FanDuel with him, but he does have power forward eligibility over there. And then Reggie Bullock. I mean, if we don't have more value, he's going to be someone we have to consider. Over on the Portland side, Dame Lillard was questionable yesterday, and he ended up playing. So I think there's a chance he rests tonight. No injury report yet. We're going to have to keep an eye on this. Let me take a look at the spread. The Blazers are 6-point favorites at home, so that tells me maybe Luka ends up sitting. I haven't seen that news anywhere yet. But if everyone's healthy for Portland, I do think Dame looks good. If Dame's out, obviously Simons becomes a priority. And then Josh Hart, Jeremy Grant, and Yusuf Nurkic, they're all fine regardless of whether Dame's in or not, but they would look a bit better with Lillard out of the lineup. So decent options here for Portland. No one I'm necessarily prioritizing. I do like Josh Hart on both sites. 5,600 on DK is just too cheap. Like, I'm going to go ahead and click that over there. I like him on FanDuel as well because you're getting shooting guard, small forward. And that's a tough position to fill, and he's reasonably priced at 6,200. So don't mind getting to some Josh Hart. But yeah, starting to fill out this lineup here. I mean, I don't think you have to stay married to Keldon. Like I said, he hasn't been great, especially at that price. There's probably going to be better value at power forward throughout the day, but definitely keep an eye on the news. Moving into the last game on the slate here, we have the 76ers at the Lakers. The Lakers are 3.5-point underdogs at home. So let's talk through the Lakers side of the ball first because Philly has not released their injury report. So let's see. So for the Lakers, obviously AD is still out. They do expect he'll be back soon. Patrick Beverley is questionable. LeBron James is probable. Still no Austin Reeves or Lonnie Walker. So LeBron looks excellent here. Love him on both sides. Obviously not the best matchup against Philly, but he's just been soaking up all that usage with AD out of the lineup, and also now Lonnie Walker and Austin Reeves out of the lineup. So he's tough not to like. I like Thomas Bryant a lot on both sides. There is some risk against Embiid that he gets into foul trouble, but he just feels a little too cheap. He's been consistently getting over 30 fantasy points. He does have a 50 fantasy point ceiling, so at sub 7K on both sites, he makes plenty of sense. Don't mind Russ here, 8,300 both sites. Not a priority, but I think he's okay in tournaments. I do like Dennis Schroeder, especially on FanDuel at only 5,700. He's one of the few plays on today's slate that's actually cheaper on FanDuel, so I do like Dennis Schroeder a lot. Put the accent on his name the first time around. But yeah, I do like Dennis here regardless. And if Patrick Beverley's out, he's going to look even better. So yeah, a pretty good game environment for the Lakers, even against a tough defense, just a high enough total. And I do like that they're playing at home. That should help keep the game at least relatively close. Then yeah, over on the Philly side, I mean, James Harden looked great yesterday, coming off a big game. Joel Embiid's going to be great if you can afford him. Tyrese Maxey is finally 100% healthy and playing full minutes. Tobias Harris was out yesterday. I think that created more usage for guys like Harden and Maxey, but there's really no secondary play that's going to come into focus that we need to roster necessarily. Like the day that Yang starts, I mean, you're going to want to get to him, but I don't think we see that situation here. It's probably going to be PJ Tucker alongside Embiid, and obviously Tucker isn't really DFS relevant. So yeah, I like Embiid and Harden. Wouldn't consider them priority pay-ups. I mean, I'm really starting with Kyrie today. I think he is who you want to get to first, and then if you can afford Jokic or Doncic, I mean, I'd probably go Doncic first. But yeah, you're getting like an almost 2K discount to go down to Sabonis, who's been excellent, and he's in a really soft matchup against San Antonio, so he looks good. There's a ton of good pay-ups on this slate. We're just not getting a lot of value, so it's going to be tricky. Definitely keep your eye on the news throughout the day. Obviously, if you're an Occupy Fantasy member, we'll keep you updated in Discord. And the model you see here is going to update in real time. So if we hear players rule out, within 5-10 minutes, you're going to see adjustments made where the value starts popping, and you can kind of build your lineups around news as it breaks. But as things stand, I mean, we're looking at Thomas Bryant, Josh Hart, Reggie Bullock as quote unquote value plays. None of them are all that cheap. Over on DK, um, I pulled an Eric Gordon. That's not part of the main slate. Um, let's see here. Yeah, it's Reggie Bullock, Josh Hart, Dwight Powell. I mean, ideally, Christian Wood's out if we're going to Dwight Powell. But as things stand, there's just not a lot of value. So you're probably going to want to get more of those nets in your lineup in those early games. 3,700 for Joe Harris, definitely appealing. Don't mind Nick Claxton at 6,100. So once again, my name's Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. Thanks for tuning in today. Nice little 5-game slate, locking at 6 Eastern Standard on both sites. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Check the links in the description below to sign up to Occupy Fantasy today. Let's have some fun tonight, everyone, and make some money. Good luck. Take care.